You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves bounce back in Miami. They take down the Heat tonight, 125-115. That was the final. What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which thanks to you guys, the #1 sports podcast network. That's Jack Borman, Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at Jared Borman13, Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. And of course, follow our guy Ben Beacon as well, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show each and every day. Lots to get into here. Jack, game MVP. I want to go over the biggest X factor from tonight, plus what we'll be talking about tomorrow. Just off the top, though, Wolves coming off that pathetic game, I guess that's the word to use, against just not a very good Atlanta team that had lost 7 straight, obviously. Then they get these 2 days off. They come in tonight looking to bounce back, kind of find some momentum, find some rhythm right in the middle of this 4-game road trip against a kind of unique opponent with Miami too, which we'll get into. But Wolves started out hot in this one, 11-0 run early on. More importantly, they finished hot in the fourth quarter, and they kind of ran away with it. Ant with 33, Reid, he was in fuego as well, 25 off the bench. 22-13 now, that's the record on the year. Start as we always do. Give me your big picture, kind of knee-jerk reaction tonight, Jack.
I mean, these are the Timberwolves that we know. It's just up and down on this roller coaster, baby. I kind of expected the Wolves to respond. I feel like every time things kind of bottom out, the Timberwolves find a way to come back and play really well, and that's what they did. And a lot of times it's because Rudy Gobert is setting the tone. But that's what he did in the first 4 minutes of this game. Had 6 points, 3 offensive rebounds, played with a lot of force, which was great. And then like you said, a unique opponent for the Timberwolves, which I think was kind of good for them and forced them to lock in on some game plan details, right? The Heat set the fewest screens in the NBA by a mile. This is a era of the NBA of pace and space, a lot of high ball screens and playing off of that. But the Heat just don't really do that. They don't set very many screens. It's predicated on a lot of just player movement and winning and isolation and just moving the ball from side to side. And so I think it provides an opportunity for, Timberwolves defense that really has struggled without Rudy Gobert to just kind of not have to worry about switching quite as much and just stay solid on their guys. And I think that's what they did. They defended well in isolation. They kept, the Heat out of the paint for the majority of this game. And again, this Miami team is #1 in the NBA in pace, #1 in the NBA in fast break points. Over the last 5, they held Miami to 10 points on the break tonight, which was great. And I just think, they stepped up to the plate and handled the challenge, right? Kevin Hansen, assistant coach, said at halftime the Wolves did a great job paying attention to details with the game plan. I thought they did that. And it was good to see the Timberwolves get off to a good start, right? This is a team that for the majority of the month of December has been a really bad first half team, has let all these teams get out to big leads, and then they've had to kind of dig themselves out of the hole in the second half, but they didn't have to do that, right? The starters played very well early in this game, especially Anthony Edwards. We'll get to him. But I thought all 3 stars really got in a rhythm for, in the first 18 minutes of this game and then stayed in it for the remainder of the game. I know Rudy Gobert had some foul trouble, but that was great. And then, the bench got active later on in the game. And right, they had that 19-4 run without Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle on the floor for pretty much all of that. And and then the last note for me off the top too is just really nice to see the Wolves move the ball against a zone, right? I think Timberwolves fans have kind of moaned and groaned when defenses have played zone, or opposing teams have played zone against the Wolves, just because it tends to bring out the worst, or at least they think that it tends to bring out the worst of the Timberwolves. But really all season, I think the Timberwolves have done a good job of moving the ball against zone defenses, and they had an offensive rating of 150 in that third quarter, in which Miami almost exclusively played zone, especially once Gobert was off the floor. So they won 24-21 in that stretch. So, they needed to win with offense if you're going to play Mike Conley, Bones Highland, Ant, Nas, and Julius out there at the same time. And they certainly did that. So it was good to see them, kind of prove to themselves like, hey, we can win with offense on nights when we bring it.
Yeah. Nice bounce back win for sure. Plenty more to get into, but let's get into the player of the game, the MVP. Let's hand out some flowers here.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
So again, Ant leads the way, 33. Nas, 29 off the bench in 25 minutes. Then you got somebody like Julius again, who we'll talk about later in segment 2, but 23 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, couple different options, couple different directions to go. But you tell us, tonight's player of the game for the Wolves, who was it and why?
It's Anthony Edwards for me. I just thought that in the first half of that game, again, just totally dominated the Heat defense as a scorer. And I think he's really mastered the art of scoring in the NBA, especially in today's day and age, now that he's got kind of that mid-range and post-up game that he's got. 33 points on 19 shots tonight for Ant. He made 8 of his 11 twos. The fact that Ant can still put up 33 points on 19 shots while making 2 of his 8 threes is pretty remarkable. It just shows you the ability he has to finish at the rim and then be able to get to the free throw line. Made 11 of his 14 free throws tonight. And then it was just the start of the game, right? Led a personal 11-0 run to just kind of grab hold of the game. And I think when you're playing a team like the Heat that wants to play really, really fast, has kind of a unique style of offense that they play, and really fly around, they can play 10, 11, 12 guys just to be able to have bodies to throw at you defensively. I thought the Wolves kind of grabbing control of the game early was really important. And Anthony Edwards played probably the most integral role in doing that. And then he also played great defense in that first quarter, right? He was switching off between Norm Powell and Davion Mitchell, kind of going back and forth with Dante DiVincenzo, depending on whether the Timberwolves had a make or a miss. And neither of those guys really got in the game early, really in the first 18 minutes. Powell kind of came on later in the game. And then in the third quarter for Ant, I thought he did a really good job of funneling the ball to Bones and Mike in the slots and to top the key against that zone defense. He didn't try to force anything at all, which I think he's tried to do in the past, just shooting over the top of zones instead of allowing all 5 guys on the floor to be part of the game and move the ball from side to side. And then he just trusted Naz and Julius Randle to finish plays, and that's exactly what they did. And then in the fourth quarter, kind of the same deal, right? Where everybody else has it rolling. He comes in and just kind of fits in. He doesn't need to, assert himself in a way that's, not necessarily riding the wave that his teammates have created. But then, when things kind of got out of control, the Heat started to really chip into the lead, get the crowd back into it. Ant just kind of delivers the gut punch and one in a huge spot to kind of put the game on ice. So that was great to see. And I thought that he played all the right notes offensively in this game. He had, what do you have in this game? I think he had 2 turnovers in this game, and one of them was a double dribble kind of in transition that right near the end of the quarter, I think in the first quarter. So for him, I mean, it was a really clean game, and 5 assists for him is a really good night. So it was really, really strong performance from Ant again tonight.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under the radar impact with today's X Factor.
Again, couple different options here for biggest X Factor. 125 points scored. I'm looking at DDV, 31 minutes, only 11 points, only 1 of 8 from 3, but a team high plus 24 in the plus minus. But a couple different options you could go. Biggest X Factor for you tonight, Jack. Who was it? Why?
Sorry about that. Yeah, for any of you gambling out there, I highly recommend looking at that Dante DiVincenzo rebounds plus assists line, because he's just been hammering that over, constantly over the last 5-10 games.
8 boards, 4 assists.
Yeah. But for tonight, I got to go with Naz Reid, and it's been a trend all season that Naz Reid has been tremendous in games that the Wolves have won, and he's not been good in the games that Wolves have lost. And I think that he's just been a big catalyst for the result of the game either way, because he unfortunately is shouldering such a huge load for this Timberwolves bench. And tonight he had 29 points, made 6 of his 8 twos, 4 of his 7 threes, all 5 of his free throws, and then layered in 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. And what was a really good, I think, just well-rounded game from Naz in a spot where the Timberwolves really needed it, especially considering that Rudy Gobert got himself into some foul trouble in that third quarter. And they just needed Naz to be really productive offensively, and he was. I think when you look at that third quarter specifically, he had 11 points as mostly a play finisher against that zone. And when he found himself in the middle of the zone, he made really quick decisions and helped set up kind of hockey assists that created a lot of really good shots against that zone. But another note for Naz, this is coming from Pivot Fade, which is a wonderful site that I recommend to everybody. Naz had 29 points. 21 of those 29 came with Rudy Gobert on the bench. And we all know how good Naz Reid has been alongside Rudy Gobert, but they really needed Naz to turn it up a notch offensively when Rudy was not out there, especially with how poor that Randle and Reid front court has been offensive or defensively. And Naz Reid missed only 2 shots, was 4 of 5 from 2, or 3 shots, I guess, 4 of 5 from 2, 3 of 5 from 3, made all 4 of his free throws with Rudy off the floor. And he was in a really high usage spot there. He only committed 1 turnover, and we know that fouling has been an issue for Naz. He only committed 1 foul, and he had 2 blocks in the minutes without Gobert. So, yeah, I mean, and then looking at Naz coming into tonight this season, he's averaging 16 points per game on 50, 41, 85 shooting splits with 6, let's call it 7 rebounds, and has about a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. But then in losses, it's only 11 points a game on 37, 28, 69 shooting splits, about 6 rebounds, and an assist to turnover ratio of about 1. So I think for Naz, trying to get him into the game as best they can is super important, and he's really been a driver of the outcome of the game. And then while we're on the topic of the bench, just really quickly, Luke, I think that you've got to give Bones Highland some credit too. I know that he was 0 of 4 from 3 and didn't particularly play his best offensive game. And let's call it the first 10, 11 minutes he was on the floor. He ended up playing 21 minutes, but he had 3 assists, no turnovers. And I thought that he was a catalyst for a lot of good ball movement against that zone in the third quarter. And the Timberwolves were plus 16 in the 21 minutes that he played, which was super important. And then for Bones too, he definitely got hunted defensively. Like, we're not going to shy away from saying that Bones was not good defensively and needs to be better on that end of the floor. But I do think that the Wolves can insulate him a little bit with playing Jaden and Jalen Clark out there alongside of him, because a lot of Bones' minutes have been coming in the non-Rudy Gobert minutes as a scorer to kind of play out there alongside Julius and Naz. So that was really important for him as well. And just for the Timberwolves bench tonight, right? It was good to see them get above, that 40 mark, had 40 points, shot 56% from the floor. And then, I think did a good job of shooting it from 3 as well. 5 of 13 from 3, which is what you want to see.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. A lot of good takeaways from this game. Plenty more deep dive as well. What will be second guessing though from this one? That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever go check your bank account and go, where'd my money go? Online shopping, entertainment, dining out, so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Not just another budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, your spending. It's all in one place, so you stop just managing your money, and instead you start building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You're getting 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA, half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Without a doubt, most fun I have playing daily fantasy. You can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season. Why I love it. So easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats, and that means it could be points, rebounds, assists, 3-pointers, you name it, they got it. Take your pick. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. You get a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. 100% bonus match up to $100. All right, Jack, before we get into what we'll be talking about, I guess I want to know if you're second guessing anything after this.
Since hindsight is always 20/20, let's deliver today's second guess.
Maybe a little tougher after a win, after you put up a $125, but anything you're second guessing from this one, Jack? Anything that sticks out the most?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just got to be the way that they're using Jaden McDaniels offensively, right? I think for the majority of the start of this season, Jaden McDaniels was a revelation in terms of how efficient he was scoring, how often he was in double figures. But Jaden McDaniels now 3 straight games scoring less than 10 points. It's his 3rd straight game taking less than 10 shot attempts, and he had 9 points in that win over Chicago, or 9 shot attempts in the win over Chicago. He has just 9 shot attempts in the 2 games since then.
That's crazy.
And I just think that, Jaden's scoring and his offensive production in the early part of this season was one of the biggest wins for the Timberwolves. And I think that they just haven't been able to get to that. And I think it's a two-way street, right? I do think the Timberwolves need to make more of a conscious effort to try to set more pin down screens for Jaden and get him the ball kind of curling into the middle of the floor while he has it on the move, can get into that mid-range where he can either elevate over smaller defenders or get all the way to the rim and finish at a super high rate that we know that he can. But I just think for him to have 4 shot attempts tonight in his 34 minutes, he had 4 stocks in his 34 minutes. I mean, it's tough to have that similar production as a lack of aggression and then defensive production like that. And then, I think again, my wish, I guess, would be for the Timberwolves to just use Jaden McDaniels in the slot a little more alongside Anthony Edwards, right? I think that too often they have him parked down in the corner and they have Randall in the slot.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them, especially in the minutes where Jaden's playing in the non-Rudy minutes, for him to be more aggressive as a scorer, right? I think you can use Randall in the dunker spot a little bit more and get Jaden in the slot, or if Ant gets doubled or blitzed, off a screen and roll, Jaden can catch it and kind of go or shoot open threes. And that's just what they need from him. Again, from Jaden too. He was taking a lot of threes early on in the season. So his last 2 games, he's taken 2 and 3 3-pointers. But before that, 3 of his previous 4 games, he took just 1 3. And I think they just need more from him. And then I also want to see the Timberwolves use him more in the pick and roll game, both as a handler and as the screener. I think he's been playing the de facto center spot for the Wolves when Naz and Julius have been the front court. And so I don't know why they couldn't use him in a pick and roll with Naz Reid or Julius Randle or whoever the case may be, and just kind of get him more involved, because they just need his production as a scorer. I know maybe tonight's not the best night to talk about it, considering they scored 125 points, but I still think that, this looks a little bit differently if Naz doesn't score 29 points, right? And Naz maybe scores closer to 20. I think this game's a little bit different. So I think they need more from Jaden. I think it's a two-way street. Jaden's got to be more aggressive, and I think his teammates and Chris Finch can be a little bit more intentional about the way that they're getting to him on the offensive end of the floor.
Yeah, good point there. I mean, anybody who's watched the Wolves this season, Jack, it knows that we're all thirsty for some more Jaden McDaniels offensive ball. Rapid fire, quick hitters. Give me your top 1 or 2 kind of noteworthy observations, I guess, from this one. Rotations, minutes, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so Chris Finch, early part of the season, did the whole Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark, both on the floor when Gobert was off the floor. He went back to that tonight. And then Jaden was functionally playing the center in those minutes as a defender, which I think is great because he's an awesome rim protector. And then when Dante DiVincenzo came in for Jalen Clark, they went to a zone. And I really like that, just as a different look. They've got to rebound well. And I think, when you've got, Dante and Bones, 2 guys that are willing to stick their heads in there and rebound. And then, Jaden, Naz, Julius, all guys who can rebound. That was great. Another thing, I thought the Wolves made a ton of extra passes on possessions that swung the ball from side to side, 3 or 4 different times, which is great to see. I think generated a lot of open shots. So it's good to see the Wolves prove that not only can they do that, but they did that pretty consistently over the course of the game tonight. And then just Julius Randle. I thought Julius Randle was awesome tonight. It kind of fell behind the wayside of, a really strong start for Rudy, a really good Ant game, a really good Naz game, but super clean game from Julius. Another double-double for him of 23 points and 10 rebounds. So great to see Julius have a bounce-back game tonight.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I mean, you kind of touched on it. I know we only got about 90 seconds or so, but one of the many storylines this year, kind of the Jekyll and Hyde nature of not just the team, but guys like McDaniels, who we already talked about, and then Julius and Naz Reid as well. Jack, your thoughts on those guys and kind of which version we've been getting on a night-to-night basis?
Yeah, I think that how far the Timberwolves go this season, if they, for the sake of this conversation, let's just assume that they have the same team, for the majority or pretty much the same rotation into the playoffs. I think it's just going to be dependent upon which versions of Naz Reid and Julius Randle that we get, right? Naz Reid has games of 29 and 33 points in his last 3 games. He only had only scored at least 15 points once in his previous 5 games before that. So, and then had 0 times in his last 7 games before that. So I think for Naz, I think sometimes with fans, these outbursts can buy him a 3 or 4 game stretch where he's not playing his best offensively. But I think, we need to hold him accountable because he's been really good in wins and not great in losses. And he's a super important part of this team. So I think Naz Reid is a scorer. I'm glad that they're kind of, if Jaden's not going to play well as a scorer, I'm really glad that Naz has been able to step up in those minutes. And then I just think with Randle, right? Randle has now over the last 5 games gone, every other game of being awesome or really poor. And so for Randle, I just think it's about the energy that he brings to the game, right? When he brings great energy to the game and really plays hard defensively, fights on the glass, and doesn't try to force it offensively. He's a super impactful, all-star, fringe, all-NBA caliber player for this Timberwolves team. But when he doesn't bring good energy, I think it really just drags everyone else down. And I hope that he realizes the kind of sway and the impact that he has, because we all know and love what Julius can do. He did it in the playoffs last season. And he's just a super important part of this Timberwolves team if he's going to continue to be on the team this year and potentially beyond.
Fantastic stuff. Per usual, Jack, T-Wolves bounce back in Miami. They take down the Heat 125-115. That's your final. Ant team high 33. Nas Reid with 29 off the bench as well. 22-13 now. That's the record on the year. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game as well. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And you got to go follow Jack at Jared Borman 13. We'll catch you back here tomorrow evening. Wolves head to Washington, 5 p.m. tip for that. Until then, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Say no.